Hello again, and thank you so much for joining us at the 11th SPRI research event. In this panel, we're going to talk about rise of innovation districts in developing countries. I am Amir Shahraini, your host and moderator for this event. I'm the director of the International Department at the Sharif Policy Research Institute. I got my MPA in the field of organizational development from University of Tehran, and I'm also a researcher in the Industry and Sustainable Development think tank, which is structured within the SPRI network. We have worked in the field of innovation districts in our institute for over a year now, and we are proud to announce that this is the first session of a series of events about the innovation districts, and we will continue to do that every month. The announcement and details for our future series of events will be made through our social media channels. This event is organized by Sharif Policy Research Institute, SPRI, affiliated to the Sharif University of Technology. SPRI was founded in 2008 as an affiliated research institute to Sharif University. The institute began with working professionally in the fields of energy and industry and sustainable development, leading to Shape Energy Think Tank, Industry and Sustainable Development Think Tank. Also, three specialized centers, namely Governance and Policy Think Tank, Migration Observatory, and Business Think Tank, also started working under the Research Institute and then became pioneers in their fields. As you have seen in the poster and our announcement in our social media, this event is going to be about rise of innovation districts in developing countries. Innovation has become a buzzword that people love to hate. Every business leader agrees that it is important, but no one can agree on one absolute definition for the word. But no matter what the definitions are, the question here is what causes innovation? It is mostly necessary. And how does one cultivate the culture of innovation? By providing an ecosystem or an environment or a platform that promotes, supports, or facilitates innovation. But where can people find such environments? The answer is they have to be built. And where are these environments? And what are these environments called? They actually are innovation districts. Innovation districts merge the innovation and employment potential of a research-oriented anchor institution and creative startups in well-designed environments. Innovation districts facilitate the creation and commercialization of new ideas and support local economies by growing jobs in the area. Their intentional development can be a tool to help connect disadvantaged population to employment and educational opportunities. I'm going to tell you a brief history of innovation districts. Barcelona is credited with creating the first innovation district with its 22 at Barcelona project. However, the concept of innovation districts in literature emerged in the early 2010s with the famous Brookings paper called The Rise of Innovation Districts, a new geography of innovation in America. Since then, it's getting more attention and becoming more crucial, especially for developing countries, which we're going to talk about in this panel. And as mentioned in our poster, we're going to talk about three main topics in this panel. The first one is going to be about the cutting-edge concepts of innovation district. The second one will be successful cases to replicate and experiences and practice-based lessons for the developing countries. And the last one will be about innovation districts as the engine of urban economic growth. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to write them down in the chat box, and I'm going to read them all and select a few and ask them at the end of the session in the Q&A part. Today, we're honored to have four outstanding researchers as our panelists: Cheryl Kaplinger, Sasrok Batar, Amir Askari, and Mariam Shai. I would like to welcome you and thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm going to start by you, Mariam, if you can hear me. Could you please go ahead and introduce yourself and also give us a brief introduction of innovation districts and why do you think they are matter?
Thank you so much. First of all, Amir, thank you so much for making this event happen. I think this is a very interesting discussion. And I'm very happy to see that happening on a monthly basis. So best of luck on that. My name is Mariam. I'm from Georgia. I think the interesting thing about me is that I'm myself from a developing country where I've seen these quite a massive attempts of do something about innovation district or like to develop that place-based innovation ecosystems there. My primary background is architecture, but I think I have a luxury to work on a research part of innovation districts, specifically based on the cases of Milan and Boston, which are both of them quite interesting. I would say both successful cases, and then the luxury of working on that on practice in the UK. So I think my background about innovation districts combines quite interesting different pieces of information that I would be happy to bring together on this panel. About the innovation districts, I really like, Damir, you mentioning that it's like a buzzword that everybody starts to hate. I totally agree with that. It's causing tensions around it, and it's really becoming something beyond what it was primarily defined. But I would say I think the concept of innovation district has gone through quite interesting pathway of evolution. It transformed, like it's being transformed, I think, and nowadays it's perceived as reflecting all the concepts that we think are relevant. I will be jumping forward. I believe we will be discussing that, but I'm really happy seeing, like speaking about the governance model and frameworks that were evolved around innovation districts, that like this helix is being added and added on that. And I'm very happy seeing the voice of the people and community becoming a strong part of it, because I think this was the key element for Barcelona, and this is something that everybody is trying to elaborate in the process of development of the innovation districts nowadays. However, I think overall the concept of innovation district is the policy response at the end of the day to the knowledge economy's increasingly spatial and urban aspects. And on that remark, I would say that innovation districts nowadays are something which are defined and recognized, and in most cases there is this one anchor institution or some driving force that really pushes that forward. But I think another important element for that is something that gets unrecognized really. And I've done a lot of work, and there are researchers working on that. And I think this is becoming also a significant part of this topic in general. What is the innovation beyond innovation districts, and what are those layers that actually organically shape innovation districts? What are those ingredients that we can also find within the city? And what makes it actually recognized. So yeah, to sum up, innovation districts are buzzwords, but I believe that it definitely goes beyond its definition that we all use formally, if that makes sense as a response.
Yeah, thank you so much, Margaret. That was so good. Castro, hear me? I would like to go on with you. Could you please go ahead, introduce yourself, and tell us a little about the cutting-edge concepts in the field of innovation districts?
Yes, sure. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be part of this panel. A little background about myself. Just like Miriam, I'm also originally from a developing country. This is from my name is Felix. I'm from Mongolia. But I grew up in Russia and past 12 years I've been living in South Korea.
Thank you.
Out of those,
I'm sorry, your voice is too low for us. If you can increase the volume.
okay, sure.
Yeah, it's getting better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So yes, I was saying that I also have my background in, I am from a developing country, but past 12 years I've been living in South Korea, and out of those 5 years I've been working for a smart city think tank research organization, and part of my work was also doing researching the smart city concept that later on evolved as another buzzword into the innovation district. And my hands-on approach to innovation space was the project that I was working the last was to think innovation space the work and the project that I was working on became a part of the global network.
All right, can go.
So I guess it sounds
So we
good.
can hear you. We couldn't hear you. Okay, I'm gonna move on to Amir, and we will have you later. Amir, could you please go ahead, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about the new trends in the fields of innovation research?
Thank you very much. Thank you for providing this opportunity for us. I'm Amir from Iran, a researcher in innovation district, mostly on innovation studies with a background with a focus on the higher education systems and also the supports that the higher education system can provide for creating and generating ecosystems, innovation ecosystem, and also what kind of innovation ecosystem exists and how we can provide the infrastructures and also the requirements for making and shaping an innovation district. My research and also my activities started many years ago by managing some startups and also some accelerators, incubator centers, and also the other components and elements that exist in the innovation district, such as the accelerators, venture capital centers, and also the efforts and also that the supply and supports that the higher education system can provide for the other institutions in order to interact, in order to provide the opportunities that these elements can interact together, can also be linked and can communicate together, and also can shape some innovative concepts such as the innovation districts. We are trying in Iran actually to provide the contents and also some guides, some guidelines, and also some support for the policymakers, practitioners, and also the citizens and the people who are responsible for making decisions in this country in order to help them to recognize the importance and also the necessities of innovation districts and what this phenomenon can create for the universities, for the citizens, for the practitioners, for the researchers, for everyone who can provide opportunities for themselves and also for the other actors in these ecosystems. In Iran, as a developing countries, we can say exactly that we can encounter a lot of opportunities and how we can canalize them, how we can make them able to also interact together, and how we can generate the infrastructures in order to make them able to empower them, and so to connect them with the other markets, and also how the policymakers in the university and also some generation ecosystems and elements such as the university, such as the hospitals, such as also the other anchor institutes can create the infrastructures for some new concepts such as the innovation districts are included in my studies, and I'm very eager here to know more about your experiences and also to have the abilities to share our experiences together, to know more with my friends here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amir. I'm going to move on to Cheryl. Could you please go ahead, give us a good introduction of yourself, and also tell us about the private space lessons and insights for developing countries. I know that you are a project manager of an innovation district, so there should be a lot of experiences.
Well, to echo everyone else's sentiments, thank you so much for this opportunity to be a part of the panel today. I am Cheryl Kaplinger, the Executive Director for Strategic Partnerships and the Innovation District Project Manager for our space here in southern Utah, for those not familiar with the area. So it is just on the borders with Arizona, Nevada, and right by California. So I put in the chat, in reflection of what Amir is saying, is the possibilities of people coming together regardless of their specific industries, whether someone's working in chemical engineering and someone working in water sustainability. It is excellent to have people within a space where they can run into each other and have those convergences. And regardless of that being in a developing country or that being in areas that are further developed, it's nice to be able to have those different types of industries come together and share ideas with one another. Some people call it those water cooler moments, and you never know what's going to happen when you put the person next to the person in a garage band, and the next thing you know, you have Facebook. You know, you never know what those kind of relationships are going to evolve to. So the other thing is that different ideas spurn from people coming together and sharing those. With our space at Utah Tech, ours is still being created, and it's a matter of working with colleagues throughout the globe to see what they are bringing to bear, as well as what we can bring in from our academic standpoint. My background is in academics and as a CEO, so bringing large-scale companies into the fold that will help students as they learn, and then that also reflects in technology transfer and creating companies, startups, and then working with venture capitalists. So to answer that other question, one of those things is being able to reflect on what works for other spaces. And I would say one of the differences that exists that some people don't know, we know it because we say it every day of what an innovation district is, and from Bruce Katz and what Julie Wagner say in Rise of Innovation Districts, is that it's different from a research park. You're not pulling up in the middle of the night and going into some lab and locking yourself away until 5 o'clock and then driving away like it's some sort of lockdown. Instead, you are working with different groups all of the time. So you have different ideas percolating, and the spaces that exist there, whether it's physical or actually psychological. So the idea of having this bumpability and convergence exists regardless of the physical space. So it's an attitude as much as it is the physical component.
Thank you so much for this. And I want to go back to you, Maya. Tell us a little bit about your experiences on innovation districts. And I want to ask you a little bit about this, that what do you think that makes an innovation district something unique?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. What was that?
Okay, I'm gonna repeat. I ask you that what do you think that makes an innovation district something unique, and also tell us a little bit about your experiences.
For me, what makes it unique is our space is being created from the ground up. It is not a space that is revitalizing something that is already existing. We are part of the Global Institute on Innovation Districts with Julie Wagner and her group. So we are creating it from scratch. And it's different in that it's bringing different items to bear that bring in areas like residences nearby, so that I don't have to think about having as much with residences coming into it. I will have family housing and faculty housing associated with our space, but there is a nearby neighborhood that is being built. So I don't have to think about trying to build 60,000 homes in addition to what I have. I will also say that it's an interesting space because where we are is catching up, very much like some of these places that we're talking about that might be influenced by having innovation districts, in that St. George a few years ago was a small town out in the middle of the desert. Even though it's only 6 a.m. here, it is already 85 Fahrenheit, so it is very warm already. And that means looking at a desert climate and doing research around that, which is different from the rest of the state. And us being once upon a time a small town, we are the fastest growing city in the country. So trying to catch up and do things with the rest of the world as quickly as they do, say, in London or in Georgia or in Europe. So being able to catch up with that, and that'll help industry as well as help our students. So that's something that's an interesting thing that we bring to the fold that might be a little bit different. And as a lot of people say from the Association of University Research Parks, if you've seen one innovation district, then you've seen one innovation district, because they are so personalized and so different that it's not like I can go see the place at MIT and go, oh, I can just copy paste like I would a school or a mall. It's different according to what your region needs and to what you're able to bring to the fold. So that's something that people have to do very introspectively, is see what they really have that's unique, that they can offer to industry and what that looks like for development. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Surreal. Actually, we got mentioned Toby and Bruce. I have reached out to Toby, and hopefully we are going to have her on our next panel. Mariam, if you can hear me, I would like to ask the same question. What do you think about your that experiences?
Yeah, I was just noting intensively hearing Cheryl, because I really do think that context is a very, very, very significant part of innovation districts. And this is usually for the cases when something is not like really exactly working out, usually one of the main reason is that somebody didn't really look at the context very well at different scales. And I really do think that the context and capturing correctly the uniqueness of the geographic area on different levels, on different scales, is one of the key significant starting points of having that done right and getting the actual concept of your innovation district right. Because you definitely, I totally agree with Cheryl, you cannot copy paste the most successful innovation district or the one that you like to a different context, because it's like everything is different. And usually what makes it work is not the district scale dynamics, but what you have at the city scale and at the regional scale. So on innovation district, it just everything comes together and you just bring all these ingredients together. And the key thing is it's very sensitive thing. You cannot really push it too much, but also you need to have the right policies on place. So I think it's all about finding that right balance where you just get it right, where you just get what you exactly need, what you can get out of your context, and to capture where you can really get it, because it's not exactly working everywhere else the same way. So yeah, I completely agree what Cheryl mentioned.
But the question is that, what do you think about the replication? You both have mentioned that ideas are unique inherently, but when it comes to replication and getting inspiration, what do you think?
I'm not sure if I capture the word correctly. If we're talking about recognition, I think
replication actually.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I think it's just all these ingredients that we are all trying to sort out, what makes innovation district, because we know district and we know innovation, we somehow managed to define it. But I think that the question mark is, when all these things come together, what exactly are those ingredients that make innovation district? And it's just those ingredients really differ everywhere else. And also, if we look at I don't really like to look at those kind of very rigid frameworks, but there are different categories within those innovation districts, and you can actually find typologies of what kind of innovation district you have, or how to structure that. So also based on that framework, you can actually get what is the key driver, because it might be university, it might be a really strong network of research institutions, or it might be those art layer that you have, for instance, in case of Milan, which is so small that in most cases it just does not really get the proper attention to get the recognition. And then you have like all these public authorities and the ones with the power who make it happen, who work on the branding, who work on the proper communication, and who make it like formally recognized and captured. And yeah, I think at that point, this is the point where all these things come together, and then you just get this unique mixture of the components that you have within the context and the ones that you try to emphasize or to push or to help to grow. If that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm not sure if Sastro can hear us, and uh, you can hear me, Sastro?
And again,
Because your voice had a lot of noises, your voice is not clear to us. If you can remove the hands-free, I think it will help you.
see if this sounds better now.
Yeah, that's so much better. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna ask
Thank
you.
God.
Thank you.
I was
I'm
feeling
gonna
bit
ask
of
you.
FOMO missing out on the discussion, but glad that you can hear me now.
Yeah. So, what I want to ask is that what we consider to be the main questions actually of this event is that how the proximity of academia, businesses, and industry can contribute to the economic development of the region. And how do you think that bringing big thinking problem solvers together could accelerate the economic growth of the region? What do you think about that?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think it's a very important question. Just to dial a little bit back, when you asked me about some new trends that are coming up in the innovation district topic, I wanted to mention a couple of things that I feel are very important and that are becoming a little bit more of a prominent discussion in the topic of innovation district. One, I feel is sustainability that was not discussed previously, but now it's becoming very important ESG, climate change, and innovation district trying to tackle these problems with solutions and products that come from it. As you know, what makes innovation district one of the components is the talent, and big companies are attracted to the talent, and through that talent, there is the innovation that is created. They're creating new technologies, new solutions, new products and services that need to tackle some of the sustainability challenges that we face. So sustainability is one of them. The second one, I feel like after COVID, we all experienced the change in the way how we work and the narrative that completely changed the way how we live, work, play, and learn. I think those concepts, when it comes to innovation district, especially when we're trying to build a mixed-use community, where it's not just the work, but also people living there, people learning there, people like getting together, creating a place that has the identity and the place-making element within this live, work, play, and learn concept. I think this is becoming very important. And a couple of more specific things, I feel like the life science industry as an asset class has become really like played a big role in innovation district. And within that asset class of life sciences, I feel there are a couple of trends of shared lab spaces and also the operators that are actually managing those spaces. So open innovation, open, that hard testing is also one of the big trends that is prominent in innovation district. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of points because you asked me this question and I was not able to answer it because of the audio issue. But okay, now the second question that you asked me, how we bringing all these elements together and different actors playing into the innovation district. I think because my previous background was in smart cities, which was a little bit similar concepts to innovation district, also mixed-use developments trying to become smart cities, or part of the city, some regions trying to become a smart city and labeling it as such. I feel like there are many actors who are involved. Of course, from the public level, we have the government, local government. On the private sector, we have all these businesses and companies. But also, when it comes to innovation districts, now we have the academia or the anchor institutions And on top of that, because it's a mixed community, it comes to influence people. So I feel when developing the framework for your innovation district, because the other panelists mentioned that your district is going to be as unique as it can get. There will be no such to similar innovation districts. Even though some operators try to replicate it in different locations, but it's still going to have a huge local context involved in it. So even though it's happening, um, having those main actors and when you try to build your framework, I feel it's very important to have your governance point. And what I mean by governance, there was a mention of the quadruple helix model. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Quadruple helix means public, private, academia, and community. So that makes it quadruple. All of them coming together and sharing a space and having each of those main active voices heard, I think it's going to be one of the main drivers of getting your innovation district right. So I hope it answered the question because I also didn't hear your question very well.
Thank you so much on your insightful contributions as well. I would like to go further with you, Cheryl. What do you think about this? That how the proximity of academia, businesses, and industries could contribute to the economic development of the region? Because it seems to be the main thing in the innovation district's nature.
Well, the nature of having it be someplace that is highly energetic and to the point that Torella was making, that it is a live, work, and play. It is not a place just where research is done. It is not just a 9 to 5 place, but instead it is open 24/7. It is around the clock, so that means having industry there as well as people who can spend their hours after work enjoying the evening and having their families there, where they feel like they don't have to have an exodus. If you think about family homes in America as a parallel, we used to have these big formal dining rooms where you would make food in the kitchen and then you would take it to the dining room and you would be separated from the kitchen. Now that's pretty much gone. You're in there with the kitchen at the same time that you're having the food, and even if you're sitting down, you're sitting at the countertop, you're sitting at the breakfast nook, you're sitting in the same place. So the proximity of the companies and industry all within the same area is literally getting in there with everyone else. You're not stepping aside. You're not going into some other place. You're not leaving work and going home. You're creating an environment where you're there all the time, where you're able to switch gears from recreation and from work, but you're also able to be in a place where these ideas can percolate, whether or not that's in your working hours or when you're having fun with your family. So it's a place where you're able to create an environment that has excitement all the time. So the proximity of the companies that are there are very important because it's able to create an environment of convergence as well as one where people can foster ideas. Julie Wagner calls it being highly caffeinated. So, here we are. But it's one of those things that it's always a buzz. It's always going on. I even put in the chat earlier, bumpability as something that they call it, that you're just constantly coming together. So again, regardless of what specific industries they are, whether it's software as a service or if it's having some government offices, it means being able to have the ideas come together and create a culture beyond the water cooler. So you're not just heads down all the days in the lab, but you're also sharing ideas. There's food trucks, there's an environment where people are having fun and able to collaborate, but then at the same time, they're somewhat competitive with each other, right? Because then they're going, oh, well, what about this? And what about that? Oh, what if we also did this? It's building a ladder to the moon by people just constantly having that energy. So I think that that's the importance of having industry in proximity, including with housing, and having an environment there that creates and fosters an entire area of excitement.
Thank you so much, Sorry. Amir, I want to get back to you. I want to ask you about this question that which industries or economic activities are considered innovative or otherwise are targeted by innovation districts, policies, or actions. I would like to discuss, especially in your case, Iran, because because it's an obvious example of a developing country, but it's a little bit different from others because it is under the unprecedented sanctions. So, what do you think about the question in the case of Iran?
In response to your question, if we want to have a review on the shaping elements of the innovation district, we can enumerate a lot of things. For example, the higher education institutes and also some upstream paradigms such as the knowledge economy and innovation economy, creative economy, and some other hypotheses and also theories that can create and also they can lead to be the governance and model for managing the innovation ecosystem somewhere even in Iran. And also we have another concept such as urban development and also some other concepts. In the higher education systems, we can say exactly that genealogy of universities, academic ecosystems, and innovations. What's going on the higher education systems and in knowledge economy, for example, innovative businesses, innovation facilitations, everything that are going to happen in fundamental model for innovation ecosystem shaping models, and also some other things, for example, regional innovation, national innovation systems, and also some competitiveness systems for the role players of the innovation ecosystems, and parks or other innovation areas under the name of the knowledge economy are playing the vital roles in the innovation districts. Regarding the urban development, we can say exactly as Mariam said, smart cities, science cities, urban knowledge and economy, urban infrastructures development, and also the other phenomena can create some opportunities for the overall players of the innovation districts. As an answer to your question, we can exactly that the competitiveness and also the combination of those materials consisting of the higher education systems, accumulation of data and knowledge flows across different regions, accumulation of, for example, knowledge and technology transfer, and also creating for some demands in some industries, and also the supplies from some big companies, and also the communication between those materials and everything that can create the competitiveness strategy for all role players in the innovation districts. And as the other friends also mentioned correctly, we cannot exactly that the formation and the shaping model of the innovation district are exactly the same. So we can categorize them in different approaches. And what is that is completely vital for all role players is that the opportunities and also the created advantages for all role players. For example, the newborn companies, for the big industries, for also the other intermediary role players, for everything that can act and also that can play a role in this innovation. This is interesting. And also the combination of those role players and what can be considered as the values for all role players is that we can create product, we can create services, we can prepare everything that we need for our companies, and we can find also the other human resources, the combination of work and residencies, and also everything that we can gather in one places, and also the welfare essence that the innovation districts can provide for the citizens around, and also the neighborhood places, companies, and everyone, every companies, every actor that can live in this innovation ecosystem. So we can say exactly that overall the the competitiveness, providing the resources, providing the opportunities, linking companies together, and also creating markets, and providing a standard tools, methods, knowledge, and also the other things that are vital for generation of ecosystems is what actually needed is in the innovation ecosystem in Iran also. And Iran, in these countries, as developing countries, we can say exactly that in this country, the universities and also some major companies are the main role players in creating innovation ecosystems. And also the innovation districts around the universities in Iran is one of the maybe the best example of creating the innovation district. For example, the Shaif Innovation Districts that you are currently locating, and also the other case, for example, the Tehran universities. So we can say exactly that around the universities as the anchor institutes, there are the requirements and also everything that are required for shaping innovation districts is currently accessible. And we have these materials, we have those knowledge, notions, and also the culture is around the universities. We can say that everything is completely prepared. About the innovation districts, one of the other missing aspects and perspective is, I think, personally, that is social innovation. One of the other impacts of the innovation districts is that the people, the companies, startups, or every role player can extract the challenges, can form and shape them into the questions, can provide the MVPs, prototypes, and also the other things as the solutions for the problem owners, and can also provide the infrastructures to transform them into the companies, into the startups, and into the everything, every entities that can be useful for the citizens and also for the all stakeholders. So we can say exactly that everything is completely prepared in the innovation districts, and also the knowledge flows and across all role players and the infrastructures, and everything is completely prepared. We cannot say exactly that the only approach and the only perspective to create the innovation district is via the university centers. There are different models, approaches, and also we can categorize them into different groups. But I think in Iran, according to our experiences, we can say exactly that in Iran, actually, the universities are the main role players. And I think the other companies are not enough mature to provide the other things that the innovation district needs in order to be able to regenerate them. So according to my experience is that we in Iran also with the focus on the universities and also the research centers, or some big companies with some knowledge-based companies and startup companies or high-tech companies, we can provide in the everything that those phenomena needs.
Thank you so much, Amir. That was great. And Mariam, what do you think about the innovation district's approaches or strategies to attract capital?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that this is strongly linked with the regional scale and overall the capacity of the wider regional area to attract the capital, but also like to invest in research and development, and like to see that on the numbers at the higher level and the bigger scale. Because I would just jump in the examples, because I saw that we wanted to see examples, and I think those are the great examples to discuss those discuss that topic. I believe that when all these elements and ingredients come together, it obviously becomes a very interesting area to invest to attract capital, and you obviously have all the startups and tech and everything to invest in. So it becomes a very interesting commercial place for the wider scale. However, if we look at that on the timeline, I think I really like the case of Boston and also the case of Milan. However, while looking at the case of Boston, I think it went through, I'm not sure about the last couple of like 2-3 years, but by that time when I was working on that case, I was really fascinated looking at the numbers, especially for the investment rate and like the impacts and implications of what you can get as a side effect of innovation district and pushing that dynamics too hard. And we all know that case is one of the best examples. Like we are very proud of it and the city is very proud of it. However, throughout the time, it started really good and it was a hype and the investment rate was really, really, really high. However, after a while, I think Boston was facing some sort of very strong side effects that was caused by all this ecosystem. And you could see those numbers being dropping throughout the time at some point. So I think this just touches a little several topics that we've been covering in this conversation. But besides all these stakeholders that we're trying to bring together and startups that we're trying to push and codes to scale up and to become successful, this is the key element, I believe, for those innovation clusters or innovation districts to function. But there is this limitation that we also need to bear in mind because those numbers really are very sensitive. And what makes innovation district alive is all this, what Cheryl was describing, the actual, like you need to have it alive. You need to make it, keep it functioning as a district. Otherwise, you get it reflected on those numbers of investments and on the rates that you see on numbers and percentages.
Yeah, thank you, Mariam. You have mentioned stakeholders of the I want to jump to Cheryl. Cheryl, since you're an executive director and a project manager of an innovation district, what do you think that are considered to be the goals of innovation districts from the perspective of the stakeholders? I mean, from the perspective of creators and implementers.
Well, to echo the sentiments of what we've been saying earlier, it depends on who the stakeholders are. So it depends on what they are trying to get out of the specific innovation district and what that means to them. So looking at who the stakeholders are and what that is varies. And I will say that as we are developing our innovation district, and something we have to share with a lot of constituents is having them understand what an innovation district even is. For some people, they thought that it was a real estate play. They thought it was an office park or a shopping center. They didn't understand what kind of ecosystem that really was. So we had to help bring that definition to bear of it actually being something that is defined. Some people were even like, I don't like the term innovation district. And I would jokingly say, well, that's like saying you don't like fire department. Like, we can call it whatever, but it's a certain genre unto itself. So the value that it has for stakeholders depends on who those stakeholders are. So with us, our stakeholders include our local environment with government, our students, industry, and our regional ethos. So people see it as an opportunity to start businesses and to have research within the area while at the same time training students to go into business and those businesses starting up. So they see it as an incubator and an accelerator to have businesses grow and create jobs wherein people can be in an environment where they can stay and live and work. Now, for some people, what they want is an environment where they can have ideas percolate by the top minds in the world and then export that to other areas, to Australia, to Africa, wherever it might be. It depends on the specific stakeholder of what they're hoping to get out of it. So for us, It was academically centered and then brought around by having the rest of our community as part of the conversation. And when I say community, I mean the entirety of the Southwest Desert region, expanding into Arizona, as well as Nevada and California. So it looked to the entire area of what we had as a specialized area and what we could bring to bear. And how is that different from something you would get, say, in Silicon Valley or what you would get in Las Vegas, and seeing our unique opportunities. So for us, it was having to be very introspective and then also trying to evaluate where we had outliers, where you would have someone say, well, I think we ought to be doing research in this one special area because one person might give us $1 billion, and if they saw it. And us go, wait, hold on. Yes, that company or that person might be very interested, but is that really what we want to do and what we will become in line with economic development? So that is something that we don't just lean into the money, but in fact, what we are trying to get out of it. So it's actually looking at the entirety of an ecosystem built around that economic development for our region. And something that's different about innovation districts than, say, shopping centers or those office parks is the vision of a collaboration for 30 and 40 years. Not a real estate play, not something to have for 5 years. It's not a mall. It's not a place for just now. It's something that you're hoping can help shape a community and grow for many years to come. So that's something that's important when you think about the stakeholders and defining how that's going to work, and then what the long-term vision is. So I'd say I know that's kind of a, it depends sort of answer, but that is in fact the answer, because stakeholders from our developers are going to be different from the people that are actually in the offices, or say a student who is looking to work with a company associated with Adobe in the hopes to get a job. So it differs from group to group. I will say we have a space here at Utah Tech that has a makerspace, an incubator, accelerator, and several startups, and it's growing so fast. That's part of the reason that we have to build this district. We've had approval for about 200 patents in the last 5 years, so we pretty much employ the patent attorneys for our region because of all the patents that come out of the university. So it's something that particular stakeholder and that group sees it as an opportunity for them. Others see it as a place where they can work on sustainability for water conservation and doing things with energy and solar concepts. So it's all dependent on who it might be and what they're trying to get done. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Sorry for your first Central. Cheryl mentioned the diversity of the stakeholders, and I think that is absolutely 100% true. So what do you think, who do you think the stakeholders are in the cases that you have studied? I mean, talking about the diversity of stakeholders in innovation districts.
I think my answer will piggyback a little bit on what Cheryl answered. Just that there are many different types of stakeholders. For example, one main stakeholder that we had was our developers when we were building up the innovation district. On top of that, the regional area where we were building it, there were local governments, the five local cities. That was not so that was a very big part of the discussion. Another part was the anchor institution. In our case, it was the Korean National Cancer Center. Of course, they had their own ideas of what they want to get out of the development, maybe cheaper rent or a better deal for the campus to be built over there. We also had a number of local artisans who were present in the area, so they were a big part of the community, so they were another stakeholder. And another stakeholder that we had were the farmers that it was previously their land that now became the innovation district or the ground for the innovation district. So there are many different kinds of stakeholders, and I feel one thing that we didn't act on is that we said that every district will have its specification. Some of the innovation districts will have a heavy specialization or maybe in neuroscience or oncology. Some of them might be driven by the anchor institution, or some of them might be building up from the startup community. So there are many different types of it, and depending on the unique value proposition that your district is offering, I think it also can eliminate some of the confusion of what the stakeholders might be getting out of this deal. Essentially, what we want to have, I think, is the idea of being on the same page about the desired outcomes. I think the big pillar is that we want to have economic development, because that is probably the concern of the side, the public side, the local government. They don't want unemployment, they want job creation, they want students to be employed after the universities. So that's one. So, yeah, the specialization of the innovation district will have a really big impact on the oh my gosh, he disappeared.
Yeah, thank you, Cecil, and thank you for insightful comments. I'm reading them all. And
No, I'm sorry. I think there's a little technical issue from my side.
yeah, and Mariam,
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I feel like I kind of messed up this answer.
I'm sorry if your voice is a little bit broken. I'm going back
I'm
to you,
really sorry. I think
Cecil.
it's my internet connection. You can go
Yeah.
ahead to the next person. I apologize for this.
It's okay. It's all right. Mariam, I'd love to ask you about this, that how do you see the future of innovation districts? You know, innovation districts is something absolutely new in literature and practice and everywhere, but we all want to see the future. We all want to have an imagination of what comes next. How do you see this?
That's a very good question. I think there is a work and thinking going on around this topic, and some say that innovation districts should be more opening up. I think, again, going back to Boston is the case, I think, which is a step forward, and what they are doing is they're kind of replicating the concept of innovation district onto the city, if that makes sense. So I think it's like sort of the host city concept that they're trying to deploy, where the whole city ideally works as an innovation district on one hand. In my opinion, I've also seen innovation, let's say what I mentioned earlier, these dynamics that we capture in innovation districts and these ingredients spread it through the city, but being unrecognized and not having any policies like really tackling those innovation dynamics and the systems within the city. So I'm not very confident saying this. I think this is still an open question, and also probably it's very context sensitive, but I believe that innovation districts are something that could be opening up more, and this is something that could be reflected on the city on the wider scale, because indeed the main starting point of innovation district is proximity, having all the stakeholders together and having this face-to-face interaction more often and more frequently. However, I think the dynamics of where we are going is having more like translating that on the human level and having that recognized at the city scale, I believe. I cannot really give you an answer with arguments. I think these are all my assumptions. But I think the question itself is very good. It's actually a research question, I think, itself. So yeah, if that makes sense to you,
Yeah, yeah,
the answer that I gave you.
yeah. Sure. What do you think? I really want to know your point of view on that.
I just put something in the chat from Arthur Little's description about the future of innovation districts. It's a bit of a beast in that it's about a 17-minute read, But to Miriam's point, it's ecosystems, it's proximity, it depends on the specificity of the area and the industry and what the long-term vision is and how it differs from just creating a interaction space that people only come and go from. So it's about creating environments where people live, work, and play and see it as a connectivity for research and economic development, as well as looking into the shifts of market and industry. So I think that it has to do with the trifecta that is described in the rise of innovation districts, of the networking and opportunities and the way that that's going to be governed. So it looks to change business districts into lifestyle districts and how that can be enveloped through different communities. So again, then the way that we started this conversation, whether it is developing countries or developing areas, it is all dependent on what they are trying to accomplish, what their strengths are, and how they can come together for that. So it's something that you just can't slap a new name on and say, oh, look, I'm going to turn this library into an innovation district. It means being able to change the entirety of the mental landscape of what that is. So, and having a lot of areas come together to make that happen. So I think that's something of where it's going to go is going to be an area where people are going to see long-term interactions and opportunities to develop areas where people can feel that they don't have to leave their homes or leave their areas because there's better opportunities or places where they can do what they want to do because they have it in their backyard. So feeling like you have to move in the United States, for example, that you have to move to LA or Chicago or New York, and I have lived in all three of those places, thinking that you have to live in those places in order to be successful should go the way of the dodo. That innovation districts, regardless if they're in Kansas or if they're in Tanzania or wherever they might be, that people should feel like they have a place where they can stay and live and work and research and create opportunities that exist in those environments and in those clusters that will thrive for years to come, not just a shop that's going to be open and in 5 years that genre is going to go away. So I'd say that's the future of innovation districts, and hopefully that will be a model that will be reflected throughout the world.
Wow, thank you so much, Shira. That sounds so futuristic. We got a question in chat box. I think that suits Amir. The question is that when should we go toward establishing the innovation districts in developing countries? What do you think, Amir?
Yeah, and also my own question is what's exactly the notion, the thought behind establishing an innovation district in the developed countries, and also is there any differences, nuances between the ideas behind the policymakers of developing underdeveloped countries and also compared to the developed countries such as the US, and also how we can compare and also extract the notions and also to have a comparison on those ideas in order to make a decision that's what's exactly the best model for implementing this innovation district in this region, or is there any other replaceable options for creating an innovation ecosystem? It could be considered as a very interesting also question and discussion also from me. And for example, the idea behind implementing an innovation district in Iran is exactly to provide the opportunities for the newborn companies in order to make them to develop and also to make them to interact with the other major companies, or to invest, or to, for example, attract the capitals, or in order to make them able to go to the international markets, or, for example, join or merge and acquisition, everything that is completely accessible into the Iranian market. And also, I think the main question is that what is the comparative studies between the idea and the notions for creating an innovation districts in the developing countries compared to the other countries, for example, the US and also the other Occidental countries, and also what makes them able to, and what encourage them to get to this idea that an innovation district is needed, and also we have to implement an innovation district. And okay, everything is completely prepared, and an innovation district is exactly the final decision that we have to do, and it's completely necessary for our ecosystems, and everything is prepared, and we are going to integrate this phenomena, and also to regenerate the current ecosystem to innovation districts. It is very interesting also to have a discussion on this subject, and also to elaborate on more about the concept of innovation districts, and what exactly motivate and encourage the stakeholders in order to come to this decision that an innovation district is completely necessary. In the case of Iran, I think exactly that the answer is completely different. And so we cannot say exactly that the idea behind the establishment of the Tarbiyat Modarris Innovation District is completely the idea behind the Sharif University. And also the idea behind the thoughts of, and also the decision makers of an organization, for example, chemical organization, institutes, companies, is exactly the same that we are facing in the university. So I think the values is matter in those cases, and also what stakeholders need, and also how we can create values in order to attract the people, the knowledge workers, and also the knowledge companies, and also to connect them together in order to create a value proposition that is completely able to be sold, and also to create opportunities also for the other stakeholders in order to come to the innovation, and also to do some things that is not possible outside of the innovation districts. So exactly, I think the competitiveness, the values created by the role players, also the values created by the venture capital centers, and also the knowledge flows across the different role players in the innovation districts. Maybe some other innovative institutions, such as the accelerators, or especially the people, and also the questions that can be asked, and also the ideas, the notions, or the international markets, or everything that can create values for people in order to come and join the innovation ecosystem, and by creating values. I think they can pose a lot of questions, this idea, and also we can scrutinize also the reasons and evidences behind those questions in order to make a decision for the policymakers, and also to guide them, and also to help them make better decisions in order that to say that is the innovation districts a good option, and also is there an unsolvable questions that cannot be solved by the other options, and an innovation districts can be the final decision or final option for this region. I think they can pose a lot of questions, those notions, and providing the insights and knowledge, information for those stakeholders is the main things that we are seeking in this webinar. So maybe sharing the experience together also to help the other practitioners and also policymakers to be able to compare the different options. Is that the STP, Science Technology Park, is exactly the innovation district? Is the citizens are the part of the innovation districts? Should we consider also the social impacts of the companies in order to create an innovation district in these regions? or is there other role players that can affect the current processes and mechanisms of work for the role players of an innovation district? And also the other phenomena, the other things, the other entities that can be considered essential when we are talking about the concept of innovation district for the stakeholders. I think it depends, as the other friends mentioned, it depends on the stakeholders, the priorities, the notions for creating innovation districts, the competitiveness, and also the financial interests, how those stakeholders can benefit from the existence of a new innovation ecosystems called, for example, innovation districts. And also what kind of values can be created by using those engagements and those, for example, investments or those new policies, or for example. And I think for the other question is that I think that the policies, the governance models, and also the other decision-making systems for managing of the innovation districts, and also some other things, for example, how they can interact together, how they can, for example, provide some solutions, for example, the sustainability, the circularity, and also everything that is the new trends in the innovation districts, and also every questions regarding the co-development of models for the role players of those innovation districts are also the other questions that can be asked for the other researchers and practitioners also.
Thank you so much, Amir. And I think this question was asked by Iman Lutfi, if I'm not mistaken. If I want to answer to this question by myself, as a researcher, I'm going to say that this movement has already started. Because right now we are having a few innovation districts in Iran. All we're trying to do is that we are trying to apply those international standards to our innovation districts, because what we are having might not seem as advanced as those standard innovation districts. We got another question. Najmuddin Yazdi, I think he wants to ask a question. He has raised his hand. I give you the permission, Najmuddin. Feel free to come up. Hello. Hello, Najmuddin.
Thank you.
Go ahead. We can't hear you. I think your voice is interrupted.
I have a question.
That's okay.
Following the last comments of Cheryl, we see many innovation districts that enter into the, for example, non-constructive mechanisms such as real estate play, or just renting or selling offices and so on. So the ultimate goal, that is having great interactions between different actors, diverse actors, and promoting innovation and the other goals that have been pointed out during this session will not be achieved. How can we prevent these faulty games at the design stage? And I think more important than that is that how can we modify such such states, because we have innovation districts that now have entered into, for example, a real estate play game, a real estate game, or just renting some offices, or just being a luxury place without real interactions, without building innovation communities, and so on. Have you had any experiences that by setting up rules or something else, I don't know, maybe having some rules for exit of some players, or changing their behaviors, or something like that, can we rectify the behaviors and the mood of that innovation district, derailing it into a correct way? Thank you.
My answer to that question is yes. We have set up the rules of the game, as it were. So before even creating our official district, it means bringing stakeholders into the conversation. So that means us working with the Global Institute of Innovation Districts, the Association of Research Parks, learning from them, seeing different spaces, seeing how they govern and how they work, but then getting our regional ecosystem conversation going so that they can see what they know what this space is going to be and what that will be like, as well as working on contracts that have requirements through our developer of what being involved looks like. So for example, I think I put in the chat earlier, no PO boxes. So someone can't be there in name only. It's if Adobe wanted to come and just have an office, that's not efficient enough. They have to be involved with the students within the space. They have to provide internships or jobs, and not just in name only, but it has to be a certain amount and a certain amount of time as well. They have to provide feedback sessions to our students, and the students have to come to their places that are outside of those. So that is some of the requirements that we have that are contractually set out in order for us to create that, and that way we don't have places where people just want to be in on the action, but it's not an appropriate place for them. So for example, this being the hot new thing that's happening, especially in St. George, we have groups that want to be in the space because they want to solicit to this very active environment where we've got restaurants and students and government workers, and we've got the military, and we've got all these people there, and we've got groups who want to be there and, just sell their business. As in, well, I have a real estate office and I want to be where the action is. That is one that we defined early on that was not centered around innovation and research, and therefore would not be appropriate within this space. So we had to work with the community to set out what we were looking for, how we were going to determine who tenants were, as well as having advice on how we would look at our tenants, and we had advisory boards set up. So again, if a company wants to come in, or a nonprofit or an entity, then we work with the developer and describe that through our advisory board, so then we can actually see what that's going to look like, and then create contracts of what that looks like in association with other organizations and with the university. So that's how we set it up and kept it from just being a storefront for people to just connect with that interactive ecosystem. So that's what we did to keep it from being a real estate play.
Thank you so much, Sherry. And one more question, one last question. That is, what is the relationship between sustainability and innovation district? And I want you, Mariam, to answer the question. It is in the chat box. What is the relationship between sustainability and innovation district?
Well, first of all, I think what we've discussed now in the past 1 hour, the aim of Innovation District is itself to be sustainable. And I think this is what we are all trying to achieve there, to make it self-sustained and a working organism in a long run that can deliver results, not today, not for now, but in a long term. On the other hand, I think sustainability in terms of environmental impact and long-term benefits and long-term implications that we're talking about, I think it's also being recently embedded within the concept of innovation district and stakeholders, meaning that all these elements that drive into environmental sustainability, I think this is something that we also will link to become a voice on the table for innovation districts. But I think just to cut it short, the aim and the mission of innovation districts are not to be a nice, shiny part of the city branding or district branding, but the bigger mission is to deliver a wider economic and social benefits in the larger scale and in a longer run. And I think when we are talking about innovation district, sustainability is something that we already mean by this concept, ideally, if we do that right. So I think there is a strong relation. In fact, sustainability is part of what we mean when we discuss innovation districts, I would say.
Thank you so much, Nadia. And we got one more question in the chat, asked by Rami and Nisha, if I'm not mistaken. I want you, Amir, to ask the question, to answer to it, since it's related to Iran. Ramin asked, how do you see the negative impact of lack of independent private investors in developing countries like Iran?
The lack of this is exactly the resource of every problem in Iran. So the kind of exactly that the distribution of the resources is exactly one of the cases. And so one of the problems that it can create also some advantages for the private sector and also for the other constituent elements of the innovation districts in order to act as a good role player in those innovation districts. So we can say exactly that the lack of investment, also more importantly, as my friend said, from the private sectors, and also the lack of resources from the other, also the national sectors, for example, the National Science Fund, or the funds, or the others, venture capital centers that are not acting very good in these ecosystems are one of the other resources for problems that are created in this ecosystem. So we can say exactly that this is one of the main problems, and also one of the other, so it can be considered as an also vital and important problem that can prevent the progress of this ecosystem. So exclusively the only problem. So we can enumerate a lot of others. So we can say exactly that besides, for example, the lack of resources, the lack of knowledge, the lack of the interconnection between the major companies and also the newborn companies, the lack of, for example, the knowledge among the knowledge workers in Iran, especially in the high-tech companies, the lack of international markets. We can say exactly that a lot of problems may prevent the progress of this ecosystem worldwide, globally. And regarding the investment, I think so we need a systematic approach in order to look at the also barriers. We can't say exactly that the investment is the only problem that matters for us. So we can consider also the other resources, the other problems, the other barriers, and also everything that can prevent the progress of this ecosystem, not only in the borderlines of this country, Iran, but also in the global perspective. So we can say exactly that the innovation district is not completely limited in a very borderline and also district limited region. So, however, we are telling that the innovation district is a completely defined district. But we cannot say exactly that completely borderlines is exactly designed in order to prevent the interconnection and also the relationship of those actors with the actors outside of this district. So it can, in some cases, it can be also posed as a question for us, for some people. So exactly, maybe innovation district is a mind, is a mindset, is a knowledge, is an ecosystem, is a set of role players that can encourage also the resources from the outside of the regions in order and to invite them to come into the region and provide the competitiveness model, provide the values for all stakeholders, for all actors, for all constituent elements in order to act better in a comparison with the other actors that are outside of the region. So we can say that the competitiveness is exactly, in my opinion, in Iran, the reason that can be considered as the main element for creating innovation ecosystem in Iran.
Thank you so much, Amir. And okay, I think we reached the end of the session for now. Sharon Kaplinger, Sastral Batar, Amir SPRI, and Mariam Shaikh, thank you so much for your insightful contributions. And we are looking forward to keeping the dialogue. And Thank you so much to all the guests who have attended this webinar, and stay tuned for our future events. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Amir.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.